Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the second IRENA policy talk of 2021. The IRENA policy talks have become a regular online gathering for renewable energy policy discussions. They enable the sharing of experience and best practice in policy design and implementation to support effective renewable energy deployment that maximize benefits. Today's policy talk focuses on policies to support green hydrogen supply and the insight the private sector can give us from their on-the-ground experience. We will present the findings of two publications: IRENA's Green Hydrogen Supply, a Guide to Policymaking, and the IRENA Coalition for Actions, Decarbonize End-Use Sectors, Practical Insight on Green Hydrogen. These reports are particularly timely because the green hydrogen sector needs rapid policy action to maximize its contribution to the energy transition. The IRENA World Energy Transition Outlook Preview, the VITO, presented a 1.5 Celsius scenario, where hydrogen will provide around 10% of the necessary greenhouse gas reduction. To achieve this, about 400 megatons of green hydrogen and 5 terawatts of electrolyzers will be needed by 2050, compared to only 200 megawatts today. However, to realize such rapid growth, several barriers will need to be addressed. These include high costs, sustainability issues, unclear future, and insufficient demand, unfit power system structures, and lack of technical and commercial standards. The Green Hydrogen Supply, a Guide to Policymaking reports, aim to shed some light on the option policymakers have to address these barriers. This report draws lessons learned from policies adopted for renewable energy in the power sector, as well as from new innovative measures for green hydrogen already in place. Despite these barriers, we are seeing more and more actors recognize green hydrogen's potential. Both public and private sectors are moving ahead with projects to build technical capacity and showcase the potential to scale up green hydrogen adoption in energy-intensive, hard-to-abate sectors. The Coalition for Action's white paper showcased projects across different end-use and provide a renewable energy industry perspective of market growth opportunities for green hydrogen. It also identifies the action needed from policymakers to accelerate its adoption worldwide. It is important that we have this discussion now. We will need more collaboration and dialogue between the public and the private sector. The private sector, in particular the first movers, can inform policymakers about the main challenges, identify actions that need to be prioritized. At the same time, policymakers must take the driving seat for the development of the green hydrogen sector, starting with sectors where the energy carrier can provide the most value. I will now hand over to Yut Collier, Head of the Policy and Renewable Energy Market Unit in IRENA. Thank you all for joining us today, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. So Yut, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General. I'm very pleased to welcome such a large audience from around the world. We are getting close to 300 participants now, and they're still coming in. So there's clearly a lot of interest in the topic of green hydrogen. And that's not surprising. I mean, as this energy carrier is being more and more talked about as a key element of the energy transition. So here at IRENA, we obviously try to provide insights to policymakers, but also other key audiences on the role, the cost and the future of this energy carrier. We've been working on hydrogen for several years, actually, starting in 2018. And since then, we've published 6 reports already. And today we're adding 2 more to it. We're not trying to just produce knowledge, but we want to have wide dissemination and a wide outreach, because that's the only way we're going to make progress on this topic. So one example is, for example, our outreach through the Hydrogen Collaborative Framework, which serves as an effective vehicle for dialogue, cooperation, and coordinated action to accelerate the deployment of green hydrogen. And then this policy talks series, where we're trying to bring our insights to as wide an audience as possible. So let's kick off. As you've already heard, we've got 2 reports to present to you, and we're going to start with my colleague Emanuele Bianco, who's Program Officer in our Policy Directorate. Emanuele has been with us here since 2018, and he's the author of the Green Hydrogen Report, which we're going to present to you now. So Emanuele, over to you.
Thank you, Ute. Ladies and gentlemen around the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It is a pleasure to be here to present the findings of the report, Green Hydrogen Supply, a Guide to Policymaking. As Ute mentioned, and I think as most of the audience knows, green hydrogen is set to become a key element of the energy transition. In fact, the IRENA World Energy Transition Outlook, for example, next slide, please, while presenting a 1.5 degrees scenario, indicates that hydrogen is set to provide 10% of the needed emission reductions. Green hydrogen in this scenario is set to reach by 2050 400 megatons from the around 1 of today, and 5 derivatives of electrolyzers will need to be deployed. To clarify, this is 25,000 times the current installed capacity. And the size of such electrolyzers will be at the gigawatt scale, much above the current megawatt scale. And green hydrogen is essential because it can achieve the fringe of the energy system to reach those areas that cannot be easily electrified, as the next presentation will indicate. But the supply side needs to increase rapidly. Next slide, please. Therefore, it is time to analyze what are the solutions policymakers have to support green hydrogen. IRENA has already published the report Green Hydrogen, a Guide to Policymaking, which presented the pillars for a proper green hydrogen policy framework, meaning those essential elements we believe are necessary to properly kickstart a green hydrogen sector. To present them briefly, they are national hydrogen strategy, policy priority setting, guarantees of origin, and enabling policies. You can find this report on IRENA's website, and I invite you all to read it if you didn't already. But while a holistic policy framework is needed, some barriers can be tackled only with dedicated policymaking. Therefore, we are assessing the challenges and the solutions for each specific part of the value chain of hydrogen. Today, we are going to observe the main challenges and identified solutions for the supply side, which comprises the production and the transport of green hydrogen. This is the report that is online now. Multiple barriers are in fact challenging the scale-up of electrolyzers and hydrogen transport infrastructure. The most relevant barriers that are here identified include the high cost, sustainability issues, unclear future, lack of real demand, unfit power system structures, and lack of technical and commercial standards. The cost barrier is particularly felt by the first movers, and current investors in green hydrogen technologies are reporting it among the main barriers for their projects. An electrolyzer costs around $750 per kilowatt, and electricity is still too expensive to achieve cost parity with gray hydrogen. As a result, green hydrogen costs around $4 to $6 per kilogram today, under the best condition, versus the $1 to $2 per kilogram of gray hydrogen. And the high cost of transport can also mean that hydrogen will be produced only locally, inhibiting global or regional trade. So we have to delve into the action to support each part of the supply chain. We identified 20 measures, and to leave space to the speakers, I will not present them all in detail. Instead, the objective of this presentation is to show you the extent of the options policymakers have to support green hydrogen production. Solution to for support green hydrogen can be drawn from the experience governments already have gained in supporting renewable energy power and heating, as well as policies in the industrial sector. For example, direct financial support and fiscal subsidies to support electrolyzers. These are very well-known policies, and they can support electrolyzers development in each phase of the project. The effect of these measures on government budget is expected to be very small at the beginning, given the limited electrolyzers manufacturing capacity today. Support and increasing such manufacturing capacity is also pivotal in reducing costs, as presented in another report from IRENA, Green Hydrogen Cost Reduction. But a policy that shows actually the commitment of a government to the energy transition is the adoption of targets. And reasonable targets can attract investors in time and set up the scene for the future of any technologies, electrolyzers too. The EU energy strategy sets target for 40 gigawatt of electrolyzers by 2030, and 7 member states have complemented it with their targets. Another country with ambitious target is Chile, with 25 gigawatt by the end of the decade. And this together makes 65 gigawatt, so around 1% of the needed capacity by 2050. But the target should not be seen as a cap, indeed they should be seen as a floor. Targets should be surpassed when possible and benefiting. But this, in this case, must go hand in hand with more rapid renewable energy capacity expansion. Because once electrolyzers are built, we must ensure that the electricity used is renewable and affordable. Electrolyzers could take electricity from full on-site renewable energy production, from the power grid, or from both sources. Multiple IRENA reports have already explored the policies to support renewable energy power plants. So in this report, we focus on how to make the grid electricity consumption sustainable and affordable. And it is important that the use of renewable electricity by electrolyzers does not take away opportunities for direct electrification that can have higher pathway efficiency. For example, electricity can be used to power a heat pump with very high efficiency. The same result, a comfortable house, can be achieved flaring green hydrogen in a boiler, but the efficiency overall will be low, and overall a very expensive way to decarbonize houses, and also a less immediate solution. To make sure electricity is not diverted from other sources, renewable electricity production and consumption for green hydrogen should be additional from the baseline, and consumption and production should have a temporal and geographical correlation. Policymakers can make sure about this additionality by recasting renewable energy targets, allowing or imposing PPAs with merchant power plants with specific geographical and temporal correlation, and taking advantage of otherwise curtailed energy. For example, allowing to install electrolyzers in areas that suffer of VRE congestion. However, electrolysis remains an energy-intensive process for which electricity price can be as high as $200 per megawatt hour, depending on the country. And taxes and fees can represent a significant share of this price. For example, an electrolyzer in Germany can, without exempted from all taxes, could produce hydrogen at a cost of $2.5 per kilogram. But when all taxes and fees are added, the cost climbs to $7 per kilogram. And it's for these reasons that Germany is exempting electrolyzers from the electricity tax and the renewable energy surcharge. But in this graph, you can see the correlation between electricity prices and the operational cost of hydrogen production. So to this, you have also to add the capacity component. However, we must remember that average electricity prices should not be used to understand the economic attractiveness of a grid-connected electrolyzers, since its flexibilities allows them to operate in hours of low electricity prices, which will also coincide with high VRE penetration. Now, We have produced hydrogen and we may need to transport it if the demand center is not co-located with the electrolyzer. And this can be expensive and energy intensive and can double the cost of green hydrogen. So transport via ships can add only a few cents, but when seas are not around, pipelines and trucks are the only options. And we can either build new pipelines or repurpose the fossil gas ones. In any case, these activities are capital intensive and will necessitate three key actions. First, standardization. Hydrogen is different from fossil gases and will need dedicated standardization activities at their inception now in the EU and the US. Second is planning. Before allowing to convert the gas grid to hydrogen, policymakers should identify no-regret areas for hydrogen pipelines. Step-by-step sectoral planning for hydrogen infrastructure can reduce the risk of oversizing or creating stranded assets. First, no-regret areas should be identified based on industrial demand. And beyond that, the anticipated additional demand from the transport sector can inform a pipeline decision. Third point is financing. The cost of repurposing may be recovered through the fees of gas bills, like it happens today. However, in case of major expansion in a short period of time, like it is needed now, the capital needed might be beyond the capabilities of the transmission system operator. For this reason, the Dutch government will invest 1.5 billion euros in hydrogen infrastructure via the TSO Gasunie to connect larger industrial centers to hydrogen generation location. And interestingly, the plan is to use the existing gas pipelines that will become available because of the declining use of fossil gas. And this is by 2030. An alternative to transport pure hydrogen may be blending. Blending may appear as a solution to partially decarbonize the gas grid, but it presents specific challenges. The maximum share would be limited by the capability of the existing gas grid to around 20% blend by volume, which translates into only about 7% CO2 emission reduction benefit. And the cost of gas would increase by 37%, even with the best available green hydrogen. Moreover, a blend may not be a feasible option for hydrogen-sensitive applications, like turbines, nor could be used by pure hydrogen-ready ones, like fuel cells. So for these reasons, other solutions may be considered to kickstart a demand of pure green hydrogen, to find immediate use instead of blending it. However, the demand for green hydrogen today is on paper. Few players actually want to use green hydrogen, but most of the industry is not able to either use it or afford it. So policymakers have some option to translate a theoretic demand into a real one. For local demand, gas mix target with virtual blending are an option. Policymakers can set a quota of green gas desired that could be reached by exchanging certificates, as happened with green certificates in the past. More action to kickstart demand for green hydrogen will be presented actually in the next report, Green Hydrogen for Industry, a Guide to Policymaking, for this fall. However, we are seeing a particular thing. We are seeing many countries taking action to kickstart an international demand already. National strategies include several commitments by country to export and import green hydrogen, here presented by the blue lines. MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, are being signed with an impressive rate among countries to explore the possibility to export and import green hydrogen. And here are the headlines. And finally, Japan is a trailblazing country, already experimenting hydrogen import routes with Australia, Brunei, and Saudi Arabia. Still, however, no green hydrogen solutions. And as you can see in this map, the future of hydrogen is likely to be an international experience. International trading, however, should not be at odds with scrutiny over the sustainability of hydrogen. Scrutiny is needed to ensure that hydrogen production is not adversely affecting the exporting country in any way, such as depriving population of water in arid climates. And in order to do this, a robust guarantees of origin system is crucial to establishing a global green hydrogen market and avoiding the unfair competition from unsustainable hydrogen production modes. Finally, to cover the cost gaps, policymakers can use one of the best tricks in their book: auctions, feed-in tariffs, feed-in premiums can be applied to green hydrogen production too. Notably, a green hydrogen tariff covering the green hydrogen cost equal to $6 per kilogram will be around $180 per megawatt hour, and will be lower than the level of the feed-in tariff scheme for renewable electricity 15 years ago, and below the levels of average solar PV auctions at the beginning of the last decade. And as this figure shows, after an initial global investment in the technology, the price of solar PV declined sharply. A similar decrease in cost in 10 years is possible also for green hydrogen, as presented in the green hydrogen cost reduction report that I mentioned before. Feed-in tariffs are already being used for biomethane, for example in France, where the tariffs for biomethane can reach $166 per megawatt hour. This would be equivalent for a tariff for green hydrogen of $5.5 per kilogram. So it could already cover today's production costs. So to conclude, a wide range of policies exist to support the development of the green hydrogen sector. And policymakers may be under the impressions that a wall of actions lies ahead. However, they can prioritize their actions depending on the maturity of their national hydrogen sector. Certain policies are suitable for kickstarting a sector, while others will be needed later. In IRENA, we introduced the policy stage concept in the previous guide, and this is created to assist the understanding of when a policy should be introduced. Fiscal policies, targets, international agreements, and support to manufacturers should be introduced at the onset for green hydrogen policymaking. Green hydrogen tariffs, premium auctions, virtual blending may follow when the real cost of hydrogen becomes clear. And regarding the transport infrastructure, the first actions are the standardization and planning, and after that, the financing instrument. However, some countries like Portugal, Australia, Germany, the Netherlands, Japan are already in the middle of stage one, setting targets for green hydrogen, mobilizing capital for investment. And this was made possible thanks to demonstration projects co-funded by the governments. So this ends my presentation, and back to you. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you, Emanuele. And obviously the report is available on our website. I've seen some of you have already put questions into Q&A, so please, if you have any further questions, we will try and answer them live or later on by email. Okay, so we're now going to hear from IRENA's Coalition for Action, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's a multi-stakeholder platform for non-governmental actors. And the coalition has amongst its members, nearly 120 organizations, and quite a mix: private sector, industry associations, civil society, research and academia, and international organizations. The coalition has recognized the crucial role hydrogen can play, and it launched a working group on the hydrogen topic in 2020. So we're now going to hear from Elvira Lopez Prados, who is the chair of the coalition's working group on decarbonizing end-use sectors, but she's also head of the CEO's office at renewable energy company Acciona. Elvira, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jute. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hello, everyone. This is Elvira Lopez Prados. I'm head of the CEO office at Acciona Energía, a leading pure renewable utility with more than 11 gigawatts under operation in 16 countries. The company counts with more than 30 years of experience as one of the sector's first mover, with assets in 6 different renewable technologies: wind, solar PV, hydro, CSP, biomass, and storage. It gives me great pleasure to set the scene from the coalition side for today's discussion on green hydrogen. The Coalition for Action's latest white paper, Decarbonizing End-Use Sectors, Practical Insights on Green Hydrogen, draws from on-the-ground experiences to provide insights on green hydrogen's growth opportunities and what is needed from policymakers to accelerate its adoption worldwide. You can access the IRENA Coalition for Action's newly launched white paper in the link that they're going to paste in the chat. Our white paper defines green hydrogen as hydrogen produced from electrolysis powered by 100% renewable energy. While other renewable-based solutions to produce hydrogen do exist, we chose to focus on electrolysis due to its potential to link competitive renewable electricity generation with hard-to-abate sectors such as industry, as well as long-haul transport, shipping, and aviation. As Emmanuel said, green hydrogen can be produced by using renewable electricity generated on-site or by sourcing electricity from the grid through models that guarantee its renewable origin. Examples include procuring renewable electricity through PPAs and purchasing renewable attribute certificates. In this case, the transparency of attribute certificates can be verified through the use of robust tracking technologies that match supply and demand. While regulation arrives, there are already initiatives that are developing solutions to guarantee that renewable origin of green hydrogen, like one we have done through Green H2 Chain, the world's first platform based on blockchain for this purpose. Next slide, please. Green hydrogen offers a diversity of potential uses. Indeed, the white paper showcases projects initiated by public and private sector actors to build technical capacity and demonstrate the potential to scale up green hydrogen uptake across various end-use sectors. We must not lose sight that the core element of the energy transition is the renewable deployment that will allow not only the decarbonization of the power sector, but the development of indirect electrification solutions like green hydrogen. In this sense, the coalition expects green hydrogen to make its most substantial impact in the industrial sector in the short to medium term. Green hydrogen can replace existing fossil fuel-based feedstocks in petrochemical refining, ammonia production for fertilizers, methanol production, and steel production. In addition to feedstock applications, green hydrogen can also substitute fossil fuels in high temperature heating for industrial processes like steel and cement production. In the transport sector, green hydrogen can be directly used in fuel cell electric vehicles to decarbonize long-haul road freight transport. It can also be combined with nitrogen or sustainably sourced carbon to produce ammonia, methanol, and other synthetic fuels for shipping and aviation. In the building sector, green hydrogen also has the potential to contribute to the energy transition through direct use for heat production. Finally, green hydrogen can potentially be used in hydrogen-fired turbines and stationary fuel cells to replace demand currently met by fossil fuels in the power sector. As a seasonal storage medium, green hydrogen can also provide system reliability and flexibility as an additional source of dispatchable electricity in systems with high shares of variable renewables. Next slide, please. Thank you. Global demand for renewable electricity to produce green hydrogen is expected to significantly increase by 2050. Coalition members active in the green hydrogen space expect to collectively develop at least 250 gigawatts of renewable generation capacity by 2030. This nearly equals the net increase in global renewable generation capacity we saw last year. Key value drivers for coalition members include the sale of green hydrogen to industrial and transport off-takers, cost savings realized through the optimization of electrolyzer renewable energy hybrid solutions, and revenues earned from providing green ancillary services. Furthermore, the coalition sees other business opportunities along the supply chain, including investment in electrolyzer manufacturing. This will not only help meet market demand, but also accelerate reductions in technology costs while creating jobs and industry. As the previous presentation mentioned, and as shown in this slide, governments will need to adopt a mix of policies to support green hydrogen. We are seeing more and more countries launching comprehensive hydrogen strategies that reflect their energy needs, environmental goals, and economic objectives. While this is an encouraging development, the coalition believes strategies need to do more to address several areas. Firstly, electrolyzer targets must be backed with sufficient R&D funding and other forms of financial support. This can include direct support, fiscal support, or tariffs like those presented beforehand. Secondly, green hydrogen demand and uptake must be enabled at all scales. Some strategies focus mainly on just building supply through large-scale green hydrogen projects. Thirdly, strategy must include plans for scaling up renewables electricity generation capacity and building out the associated power system infrastructure to supply electrolyzers. That is going to be key. Lastly, certification will be central to creating national, regional, and global markets for green hydrogen. Strategies must put forward supportive enabling frameworks to encourage the development of robust certification schemes. As Emanuele explained in his presentation, efforts to develop global trading of green hydrogen are starting to emerge. For green hydrogen to become a tradable commodity, producers must be able to get their product to international markets. Off-takers of green hydrogen must also have assurance the hydrogen product they are receiving is produced from 100% renewable energy. To enable market entry and stimulate market demand, which is fundamental, the coalition urges governments to take 3 actions. First one, at the national and regional levels, government must adapt existing regulatory frameworks governing the production, transportation, and storage of green hydrogen. This includes making easier and adapting rules for permitting hydrogen projects, rules establishing fair access to different types of energy markets, as well as regulation related to hydrogen safety. The second point is that governments must also work together to create an international taxonomy for green hydrogen and its derivative. This taxonomy can also inform the development of international codes and standards for green hydrogen, which will encourage the application of best practices and the development of cross-border projects. Finally, governments must work to establish certification schemes for green hydrogen. Such schemes need to differentiate between certificates from renewable electricity and certificates from green hydrogen produced from renewable electricity. So, to wrap things up, I would like to leave you with a few key takeaways for governments. The first one is act now to develop national strategies and plans that support the long-term development of a sustainable green hydrogen sector. Governments should leverage now on post-COVID stimulus and recovery packages to kick-start production and associated infrastructure development. Implement financial policies and incentives to accelerate early-stage innovation and deployment of green hydrogen technologies. This financial support is needed until green hydrogen becomes cost competitive with other forms of hydrogen, of course. And the third one, and maybe the most important one, is to stimulate demand for green hydrogen through carbon pricing and other measures such as green product mandates, public procurement schemes, and sectoral targets. Consider how electricity grid fees taxation affect the availability of producers to optimize green hydrogen production to periods when renewable electricity is in excess supply and available at lower costs. And in the near term, prioritize green hydrogen deployment in hard-to-abate sectors where no cheaper decarbonization options exist, and work with partners to develop integrated green hydrogen hubs or valleys, collocating production, storage, distribution, and consumption. And finally, international cooperation is key. Work with other governments, industry, and academia to jointly collaborate on R&D, reach common agreements on standards and certification principles, and identify supply chain and trading opportunities. We will now be moving On to the panel discussion, where we will be hearing more about the case studies profiled in our white paper. We are happy to include the Power to Green Hydrogen project in Mallorca as the first flagship project in Southern Europe, pioneering in green hydrogen solutions for island decarbonization and industrial reconversion in the island of Mallorca in Spain. Thank you very much for your attention, and I leave the floor to Jute again. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvira. As you said, we are going to move over to a panel discussion now, and we've got a very exciting panel, very wide background in terms of geography as well. So we're looking forward to hearing that. You can also put your questions to the panel in the Q&As, and we'll see whether we can put some of them across. So to moderate the panel, we've invited Frank Wouters, who's Senior Vice President for the Energy Transition at Reliance Industries. Frank has been leading renewable energy projects, transactions, and technology development for 30 years. Amongst his many roles, of course, is the Director of the EU GCC Clean Energy Technology Network, Chairman of the MENA Hydrogen Alliance, and Chairman of the DII Advisory Board. And he was with us at IRENA in the past. So Frank, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ute, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to moderate an exciting panel where we're going to deepen some of the topics that we've heard of before. The interaction, the overlap between the private and the public sector, because a year and a half ago I was in Brussels and attended a meeting where also Executive Vice President of the European Commission was speaking, Frans Timmermans, who was in charge of the Green Deal, but also the European Hydrogen Strategy. And he very clearly said, the private sector will make the bulk of the investments, but they cannot do it alone. And, the public sector is there to support, but also cannot do it alone. So very clearly alluding to that fact. And let me introduce the panelists. We have Martin Pij, who's Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at SSAB. We have Mika Obayashi, who's Director of the Renewable Energy Institute. We have Milan Garcia-Tola, who's Director of Hydrogen Unit at Iberdrola, and Jed Yao, Senior Manager of the China Hydrogen Alliance. Let me start with you, Jed. Could you please explain to the audience what the China Hydrogen Alliance is?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you good.
Yeah, okay. I'm Jed Yao. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear friends. This is Jed Yao, Senior Manager of China Hydrogen Alliance. I'm mainly responsible for the green hydrogen standard and the certification, collaboration, and innovation work exactly. Firstly, I will give a short introduction. What is China Hydrogen Alliance? China Hydrogen Alliance is a national hydrogen energy development platform. It was set up under the guidance of a number of ministries and commissions in 2018, and led by the CHN Energy Group and the Sinopec, with 105 members ranging from large companies in energy production, equipment manufacturing, transportation, metallic material, and universities and research institutes. China Hydrogen Alliance is committed to becoming a cooperation platform to promote cross-industry, cross-sector collaboration, innovation, resource integration, and promotion application, communication, and the publicity of China hydrogen and China hydrogen energy and the fuel cell industries. That is very short introduction to China Hydrogen Alliance. And we have one more question prepared for the what is driving the development of green hydrogen in China. So I can, for the second question, I would like to say China has in China the first driving force for the green hydrogen was decarbonization. China has taken a very active part in the global response to climate change and committed to the international community to a carbon peak by 2030 and the carbon neutral target by 2060. So China regards green hydrogen as a very important tool to achieve the goal of carbon neutrality. Attaches great importance to the role of green hydrogen in reducing carbon emission and has laid out the green hydrogen industry through the following aspects. One is the first one is driven by the policy. China has making financial policies to support the application of green hydrogens in demonstration activities, like in the hydrogen energy and fuel cell demonstration cities document released by the 5 ministry and the commissions last year. The use of green hydrogen by fuel cell vehicles in the demonstration cities clusters is encouraged, and the use of clean hydrogen, which means carbon emission below 5 kg CO2 per kg hydrogen, is clearly given the incentives and the subsidies for the first time. That is extra subsidies. The demonstration city clusters include Beijing, Shanghai, Guangdong, Henan, Hebei province, which will actively promote the use of fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen refueling stations network within the demonstration period. In terms of green hydrogen support for transportation, fuel cell vehicles application of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games, the green hydrogen support will be provided through several wind-solar coupled electrolysis hydrogen production projects in Zhangjiakou, Hebei, and a good demonstration effect will be formed. Secondly, I think it's driven by the markets in area which was rich in renewable energy, like such as east of Ningxia, where I'm travel now, and the 3 northern areas exactly. There are various of these used wind power and the PV and the solar energy. The role of green hydrogen in the absorption of surplus renewable energy are actively exploring, and the traditional fossil hydrogen are replacing by the low-cost green hydrogen. China's leading wind power and PV enterprise are started to set up green hydrogen production plants, generate green hydrogen by surplus renewable energy. For example, in Ningxia Baofeng Energy, the first phase of 20,000 cubic meter per hour solar electrolysis producing green hydrogen project was completely and put into operation in early of April, which is applied to the downstream fuel cell vehicles and the raw materials as raw materials for the chemical industry. Also, I need to stress the largest private Chinese renewable energy companies like Longji, Jinke, and SunPower has actions in green hydrogen value chains. Also, China's largest large state-owned energy price, such as CHN Energy Group, Sinopec, State Power Investment Corporation, and others, began to invest the green hydrogen and industry chain. So that is my short talks about the questions. And finally, as a national hydrogen platform, promotion platform, China Hydrogen Alliance hopes to work with global partners to promote the development of green hydrogens worldwide. Thank you for the listening. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jet. That's fascinating to hear how China approaches this, from a city development perspective, focusing on transport but also including other end users of hydrogen. I have one question to you. What's your approach towards, the electrolysis, the electrolyzer? Is the government also actively promoting, an industrial development activity towards that?
You ask my view about the electrolysis industry?
Yes.
I would like to say that in the very beginning part of at present, the electricity equipment, the cost is very high and the lifetime is still not so long, especially as the PEM electricity equipment, its cost is several times as the traditional alkaline electrolysis. So China government also make plans to invest into research and cost down in these areas and also encourages the enterprise to invest in these areas. So I think in the coming years of the next 5 or 10 years, the electrolysis equipment will cost down very quickly. So at that time, I think the cost of generate green hydrogen will be very very economically the cost very will cost down very quickly. So yeah, it needs time to achieve the cost compared to the traditional hydrogen. So I think also from reports from IEA and the China Hydrogen Alliance and other research institutes, we estimate about at about 2030, the price of green hydrogen will as equal as the gray hydrogen and traditional hydrogen. So at that time, we can see the green hydrogen will have a more visible and bright future. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me pivot to Europe. Mr. Milan, Iberdrola has entered into a number of partnerships, and one of them was featured in the Coalition for Action's latest white paper with Fertiberia, the Puertollano project. How important are such partnerships for Iberdrola?
Hi, Frank. Thank you very much for the question. Iberdrola, first of all, Iberdrola is we are a company that 20 years ago we decided to move from a fossil fuel production business to a renewable one. So right now we are a global leader in renewables with about around 35 gigawatts installed of renewable energy around the world. And right now we decided that it's time, of course, to improve this, to increase this renewable production. We have an ambitious plan of growing that we are going to multiply by 2 our capacity, renewable capacity for 2025. And it's time to move and to complete this transition to renewable with green hydrogen. And yes, absolutely agree with you. It is time for cooperate. It's time for partnership. It's not time for compete between the companies, because we are, we have real projects. We are going to, as you mentioned, the project with Fertiberia, we're going to produce green hydrogen for Fertiberia at the end of this week. We are working on the project. We are working at site with the constructions works, with the construction works. So first of all, we need to break the vicious circle of low demand, high prices of green hydrogen, more so there's less appetite from the companies to move from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen. So yes, we need to make partnerships. We need to make alliance. First of all, of course, with the potential of takers of this green hydrogen, we need to have some complicity with them, because this is not, it's a pity, but this is not a way of competitiveness with the gray hydrogen. So we need to have them involved in this feeling, in this strategy of decarbonization of their industries. So Fertiberia is the perfect example of a partner that is thinking in decarbonizing their industries, of course, making in a competitive way, because if not, their business is not going to work. Second, we need to have partnerships. We need to make alliances with the technologists, because as it was said before, the electrolyzer supply is going to be a bottleneck in this whole ambition of installing green hydrogen. So that's we announced a few days ago a global partnership with Cummins, one of the most relevant players in the electrolyzer producers. And of course, at least we need to have the complicity and we need to have the partnership of the administrations and governments. So for wrap up my position, it's time to collaborate, it's time to make alliances, and it's time to break that vicious circle between low demand, high costs of green hydrogen production.
Thanks, thanks, Milan. So, what I mean, the topic today is the the interface between the public and the private sector. Obviously, the Spanish government has taken measures to support the hydrogen economy's start. Can you explain a little bit what they've done that really stood out, and is that something that other countries can learn from?
Yes, yes. I think that the Spanish government have made some clear movements, and in my opinion, they're in the right way for breaking this, or for doing their part of the breaking of this circle, this vicious circle. They announced at the end of last year a green hydrogen roadmap, in which, first of all, they prioritize the sectors in which we, the companies, following their guidance, we need to focus our efforts in order to decarbonize the industry. First of all, we need to transform those sectors in which the gray hydrogen is right now used because of it's a feedstock of their production process, and that's the main objective of the Spanish government. Replace gray hydrogen. Don't forget that around the world there are more than 80 million tons of gray hydrogen that's being produced, and 10 times that is emitting of CO2. Just in Spain, we have 0.5 million of gray hydrogen, that is tons of gray hydrogen per year that are produced and consumed every year. So the first sector we received the guidance to attack, let me say that, with green hydrogen is current users of gray hydrogen, and we can't forget those sectors in transportation that are hard to abate with the traditional solution that I think that's going to be the mainstream solution for the decarbonized transportation. That is, of course, batteries, electrification of the transportation. But there are some sectors, some niches like trains, like heavy transportation or long distances transportation, and not in the short time, but I'm sure that there's an opportunity in marine transportation. So the green hydrogen roadmap of Spain focuses on these two sectors. And a few weeks ago, I think that 10 days ago, the government shown to the European community the detail of the plan that the government has for the recuperance and resilience, this recovery and resilience plan that fixed 1.5 billion of euros for this development of green hydrogen. Focus as it can be in those sectors, replacing gray hydrogen and of current users, and a small part of develop new ways of transportation by hydrogen. They were clear in what amount of money they want to spend or invest in these 3 years, 1.5 billion from now to 2023, 400 million in this year 2021 are going to be invested in hydrogen projects. And they fix they divided the help in 4 lines. The first of all, I think that is very important, is to help small and medium enterprises and technological centers, and to help them to increase their capacities, to improve their equipment. The second one is to help to create a big hydrogen hub in Spain, in which producers of green hydrogen and consumers of gray hydrogen could speed up this transition, because there is a huge demand of hydrogen, and there are companies that we are ready to invest and to produce that green hydrogen that should replace the gray one. And the third The third line of actuation is to help projects that are smaller, demo projects, that are needed to improve this transition and the development of the whole value chain of green hydrogen. So I think that the Spanish government is in the right way, and I think that this is a path that in my humble opinion, that other governments should follow. Of course, every country has their own particular situation, but in a general picture, I think that is a useful guide for other countries. That of course is also inspired in the European directives.
Thank you for that perspective. And sticking with governments, I would like to pivot to Japan. Ms. Mika Obayashi, Japan has been leading the pack. I can say that for several years now, there's been a big focus on hydrogen, to secure supply, but also decarbonize the energy system. Now, if I look at many countries and regions, there seems to be a priority for green hydrogen over other colors of hydrogen. What is Japan's take on that? Can you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to join the event on this interesting topic. A question from Frank. The Japanese government's current approach to hydrogen is that it seems hydrogen as a way to decarbonize fossil fuels. In particular, it is considering a project to establish a hydrogen supply chain, importing hydrogen made from thermal power with CCS from outside Japan, and has started to transport liquid hydrogen made from brown coal in Australia, or MCH from abundant natural gas power plant in Brunei, gray or blue hydrogen. There are no domestic fossil fuel hydrogen plants yet. As for green hydrogen, a hydrogen plant with 20 megawatt solar has been commissioned in Fukushima area, and researches with 10 megawatt electrolyzers are underway. All of these projects may sound like they are going ahead well from other countries. In a sense, yes, but they are very expensive demonstration projects. It is difficult to envisage any of these projects ever being fully developed to the point of commercial operation. The reason for this is that the current government mindset is based on the idea that the use of hydrogen is an end in itself, regardless of whether it is gray, blue, or green. For the time being, the idea is to promote the development of the hydrogen supply chain first, since the process of use is the same whether the hydrogen is derived from fossil fuels or renewables. Basically, it is envisaged that hydrogen will be applied where fossil fuels have been applied so far, with a focus on the use of hydrogen in the application of light transport, such as buses and cars, and the installation of fuel cells in buildings. And even the government aims to introduce hydrogen for generation. But this is not an appropriate use of hydrogen, given that hydrogen is an expensive energy source in terms of efficiency. In order to use hydrogen in a rational way, from our opinion, it is essential that cheap renewables are available on a large scale. In other words, it is important to position hydrogen as a carrier of valuable renewables. Fundamentally, hydrogen is an expensive energy source, so where energy can be provided by other cheaper methods, like direct use of green electricity, hydrogen should be limited in scope at first. Electrification and renewables powering rapid decarbonization are the first steps in the process of decarbonized energy as a whole through integration with other sectors such as transport and heat. And so in the medium term, hydrogen will play an important role in heavy industry and heavy duty transport where electrification is not possible. And then in addition, as renewable generation can often be far from demand centers, so utilizing the grid to distribute power to areas of demand where it can then be converted to hydrogen presents a more economical and practical solution to the hydrogen supply challenge. Transporting hydrogen over longer distance, if economic or practical circumstances favor remote production, is still an option, and in some countries like Japan, green hydrogen and green synthetic fuels should not be produced entirely domestically. We recently released the 100% renewable scenario for 2050 and did some sensitivity scenarios and included Japan's import of some of green hydrogen. It's purely economic point of view, but still Japan can ease its energy self-sufficiency from 12% today to 68% by 2050. With these principles in mind, it is important to define the overall picture of energy use in order to build an infrastructure that takes into account optimal and end-to-end generation and consumption. That is our opinion on the current status of Japan.
Thank you. And I mean, you already alluded to the fact that, you know, obviously right now you're a massive importer of, you know, primary energy, and like Europe, I mean, Europe imports more than half of all its primary energy, and it's not foreseen that that will ever change. Even in a fully decarbonized setting, Europe will remain an importer like Korea and like Japan. Because even 68% is still 32%, which is a huge amount that has to come from elsewhere. What needs to happen for this, you know, and you say it's 100% renewable, that is the aim by 2050. What needs to happen for that global, you know, trading system of renewable energy to materialize? What are the next steps?
Yeah, on the second question from Frank, I think it's important that we focus on accountability and traceability. Before the entire hydrogen trading system is being established, we need a system that we can track, record the hydrogen. This also helps to avoid the spread of hydrogen of unknown origin. I think that it could be useful.
Yeah, I think that that is something that we've heard also in the initial presentations, a system of guarantees of origin and certification, all of that is badly needed. With that, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Martin Pei, Executive Vice President and CTO at SSAB from Sweden. Every time Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, speaks about hydrogen, she speaks about steel. Now, your company is in the business of revolutionizing steel making. You know, you've championed the use of green hydrogen, as also described in the Coalition for Action paper. And I urge the listeners and the viewers to have a look at that. It's available on the IRENA website. Now, what challenges did you face during the development of the hybrid project? You have to unmute, Martin. Try again. We cannot hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, fantastic.
Oh, good. Sorry for the trouble with these microphones. Thank you for the introduction, Frank, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for listeners. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to say a few words about the hybrid initiative. I agree that we are in the steel sector. SSAB is a steel company with production facilities in Sweden, in Finland, and the United States. In Sweden and Finland, we use the blast furnace technology since we have access to high quality iron ore resources in northern part of Sweden. So currently, our production facility in the US are based on recycled scrap using the electric arc furnace process. So it's more focused in Sweden and Finland. We are very skilled in the current production technology. The blast furnaces that SSAB are running all are running on 100% of iron ore pellets. So we have an extremely efficient process. We are in the leading position of the current technology. However, SSAB as a single company is emitting 10% of Sweden's national CO2 emission. This same figure for Finland is 7%. So we are in the really target position when the climate ambitions in both Sweden and Finland are extremely high. When we started the hybrid initiative back in 2016 because we realized that currently we are importing coal to enable us to produce steel, and we have in Sweden a quite unique situation. Sweden is one of the few countries with fully decarbonized electricity grid. And Sweden currently is also exporting about 10% of electricity production. So with that, we contacted LKB, which is mining company, and Vattenfall, which is the energy company. We started the hybrid initiative in 2016. We created a joint venture company. We are right now running trials in the pilot facilities. We are actually developing the pure hydrogen-based direct reduction technology. So our aim is to start transforming the SSAB production system, starting with closing 2 blast furnaces in one of our mills in Oxelösund, south of Stockholm, in 2025, and moving on to get fully decarbonized to become a fossil-free company, as we call it, before 2045. So that is our plan. We are now on the way to do that. The technology looks very in our project developing. We are constructing a pilot plant using the line rock caving technology to store hydrogen at high pressure in gas form. In that way, we can balance also the electricity grid, since we foresee both in Sweden and Finland in the coming decades, wind power will increase significantly in the electricity grid. So with the hydrogen storage as a huge energy storage possibility, we from the steel industry can get access to a lower cost of electricity on average, and for the investment companies in the wind power sector, they can get a better paid for their electricity. So we see really this as a win-win situation. So we utilize the Swedish iron ore mine resources in northern part of the country with locally produced electricity, and we make high quality steel to supply to our customers. SSAB just entered into a strategic partnership with the Volvo Group. So Volvo Group will be the company that will start to use the first fossil-free steel that we will produce. Actually, we will going to make already this year prototypes of products that can be demonstrated on the market. So this is an important project for us. We see this also as a business opportunity. So it's not only addressing the climate goals, we see that we can in this way strengthen our whole manufacturing industry and create also the base for a welfare nation, totally fossil-free.
No, thank you. And it's interesting that you mentioned your cooperation with Volvo, because we've also seen, of course, this week, I think this week or last week, the announcement of Mercedes-Benz with another Swedish steel company that is trying to do something similar. So I guess the global epicenter of hydrogen steel is in Sweden. That's very good to see. Now, the next publication that IRENA is working on will look at specific policy measures aimed at industrial applications. Now, you from the industry, what are your suggestions? What kind of policy measures do you need for your business?
Yeah, for us in the near term, locally in Sweden and Finland, the most focus is on speeding up the transformation, because we believe this is a win-win situation for the society, for the industry. We can decarbonize, we can create a much better future for everyone. Then the timing is really critical. So locally, we work a lot with speeding up the permit process, enable more investments in electricity grid, in renewable energy production. Of course, I'm quite happy to hear that from Jet's discussion that there is a quite good belief that the electrolyzer cost will go down in the coming decades. That will be, of course, very important. Overall, for us, we believe that the driving force, of course, is the need to address the climate change issue. So having a uniform, harmonized emission cost of carbon dioxide, that will be one of the key drivers for the industry to start to move. And in that sense, it is important to create a level playing field so that the company that start to transform does not get, say, a bad situation with competition from those who don't move. So that's, I think, one of the aspects from a policymaker perspective need to address.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, part of the issue with hydrogen is that hydrogen competes with different products, right? I mean, if you're using hydrogen as a transport fuel, your competition is diesel and gasoline, which is rather expensive. So you can probably afford a high price for hydrogen. But in steelmaking, you're competing with coking coal, which is a lot cheaper in many instances, and there you're probably further away from pure cost competitiveness than other applications. So you mentioned a level of fairness around policy making. How important is carbon border adjustment for you?
There is currently a discussion in the European Union, and we believe that what is most important is really to get the details that will work, since we are a company that are exporting our products worldwide. We are present in more than 50 countries. So to have a level playing field, not only in the European Union, but also on the global market is important for us. So we need to find a system that works for all. So that's why the promotion, so that customers really start to recognize which products they would like to pay a premium for, how that transparency is going to work. I think that's extremely important for us.
Yes, thank you. So we have a number of questions from the audience, and I urge people to chip in if they have a specific question. One of them alludes to the fact that, especially now, given that it's still to some extent more expensive than, fossil alternatives, is this something for developing countries, or is it just something that, we can do in richer environments? When and how will this be something that also, becomes relevant in developing countries? Anybody that has a view on this? Yes, please, Mika.
Thank you very much. I think that if the renewables become really cheaper than fossil fuel, and we can get the cheap renewable in a large scale, it will be cheaper than fossil fuel, even that we create hydrogen from renewables.
So, I mean, part of that answer, I guess, lies in the cost of capital and the cost of doing business in, less stable economies. But already now we're seeing, relatively, cheap renewables, if you will, in countries in Africa, etc. I saw a recent project in Ethiopia that had a solar price of a little bit more than $2 per kilowatt hour. So you could imagine that it is within reach. But Milan, you had something to add to this discussion.
Yes, we need to take into account also the cost of carbon emissions. It will help to leverage that gap between green hydrogen and rest of the uses, and not only to think about these cost of emissions, but make some protective taxes for those countries that doesn't apply these carbon taxes emissions.
Thank you for that. Mr. Jet, I have a question for you. There's some concern about safety of hydrogen. Now, if you're rolling out, you know, tens of thousands of buses and vehicles in inner cities, you know, what is your view on that? How can we, I mean, maybe it's just perception, but how can we convince consumers that it is safe?
I would like to say about the safety concern. The hydrogen is not it's not even more not safety compared to our car used oil or fossil or gas. Just we need to know the hydrogen what it is, how to well use it, the right way of control the risk, and you need to use the safety like safety production, products. As I would like to say, we have technicals. We can control the safety issues. That is not the biggest issue for applying the hydrogen. Yeah.
No, thank you, Milan. You would like to add something here?
Yes, yes. We don't forget. We have to remember that hydrogen is being used in the industry for more than 100 years ago without any issue. Petrochemical, fertilizers, and even in transportation in the north of Europe, in the north of Italy, is being used the hydrogen as a pilot project since I think that more than 10 years ago without any issue. So as Mr. Jet said, it's a matter of security, it's a matter of procedures, regulation. So it's nobody cares right now of being transported by a natural gas vehicle. Why a hydrogen vehicle should be more dangerous than a natural gas one? Thanks.
Thank you for that. I have a question for Mika. Somebody asked about the role of hydrogen in the power sector. I mean, you mentioned a few applications in Japan, but there is also now, you know, a pilot going on where, you know, you co-inject ammonia in a coal-fired power plant. How big is that, and you know, how does that work?
I think that it's still the kind of a very small scale and a pilot project that, especially at least that in Japan, and the government, as I mentioned, that the government has a plan to use the hydrogen as a generation, but in terms of energy efficiency, that is not efficient because that we produce the hydrogen first and then convert it gas and then use it as that generation again. So, so sorry to repeatedly saying, but if we could have the abundant renewable energy resource, I think that it could be really valuable to use the hydrogen as a kind of a carrier and a storage, and then we can use it as a kind of a for heavy duty industries and also to generation probably.
Thank you. There's also some various questions about the different methodologies to produce hydrogen. I think Mr. Jet alluded to, you know, the well-proven alkaline and you know, the other technology, including PEM. You know, Martin, what kind of technology do you have a preference, or have you made a choice as to what works for you?
Yeah, we in our hybrid project we have an electrolyzer based on the alkaline technology, 4 megawatt currently running our pilot plant. We in our project are not focusing on the production technology of hydrogen itself. We are developing the hydrogen storage possibility. So that's where we are focusing on. So next step, when we are right now planning for the first hybrid demonstration facility, which will be built in 2026, we're talking about electrolyzer plant up to between around 600 megawatts, which will be a huge facility. So we are discussing with electrolyzer suppliers, and we have not decided which technology would be relevant for that big plant. But we are following very closely. Of course, the most important thing is the efficiency, because that makes every investment project very sensitive. If you could have a higher overall efficiency, will be extremely important for us, since it's a huge plant we are going to build. So we will follow the development, and we are not investing ourselves in that part. So hopefully the industry will provide us with the best option.
No, thank you for that, Mr. Milan. There's some question about the the government support for the IRENA project. Can you say something about that?
Okay, we some months ago we started the Iberlizer as our answer to a need, as I said before, that we are sure that electrolyzer is going to be one of the bottlenecks of the deployment of green hydrogen. During the way in which we progress with this idea, because we started as Iberlizer as a company that we Iberdrola are going to lead, we realized that there was another option, is that to let the main players in this sector, to help them to lead the deployment of a big factory of electrolyzers in Spain. So that's what we did. We moved from being at the leading of this deployment, as we did many years ago with Gamesa. Gamesa was, as you know, at the beginning of their history, was a company that was taken by Iberdrola and helped them to grow and to develop the new products, because they dedicated something different from renewables. And we decided, we found in this way with Iberlizer, we met with Cummins. We have a lot of discussions about the model, and we decided, we both, Cummins and Iberdrola, decided that Cummins was going to lead the process of installing a big factory of electrolyzers in Europe, able to produce more than 500 megawatts per year of PEM electrolyzers. And we, Iberdrola, we are taking a secondary role in this situation, because we are going to have a wide agreement with them to produce and to help them with this development. But we think that our main objective is to settle a big factory of electrolyzers in Europe. We don't care if it has the brand of Iberlizer or it has the brand of Cummins. The purpose is that to strengthen the power of Europe in the value chain of hydrogen. So there's nothing, in fact, nothing has changed. We believe in that these kind of factories are needed. I'm sure that Cummins is not going to be the only one player that is going to increase their power in Europe. So for me it's perfect as it is right now.
Thank you. In view of the time, I think we have time for one last question, and there's a question from Mr. Jet. We learned that China, the Ministry of Finance, is planning to fund 795 million yuan projects for hydrogen. Where is that money going to go? What kind of projects are going to be targeted, and what areas need quicker expansion in your view in China?
I think the five ministry and the commissions released a policy, a economic policy for the usage of the fuel cell vehicles and the hydrogen refueling stations in the city clusters like Shanghai, Beijing, Henan, Hebei, 5 city clusters. So I think that in this city clusters, fuel cell vehicles application and the network of the hydrogen refueling stations will be increasing very quickly in the coming 4 or 5 years. And among this industry, it is fuel cell vehicle industries. projects will be well generated, and also in the green hydrogen, what I mentioned in the beginning, many chemical industries are using the green hydrogen to decarbonization, and steel making industries are making the plan to try to pilot some pilot project to use the green hydrogen to decarbonization. It is hard to use green electricity in this field. I think green hydrogen will generate a lot of applications. So I think we can see in China in this not only in this city demonstration city clusters, but also in many like rich renewable energy areas. I think a lot of green hydrogen projects will be we can see it is put into use. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for that. And with that, I think we have to wrap up. It was my pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I hope that the audience has learned as much as I have. Of course, we're open to continue answering your questions. So if you feel that we haven't been able to address them, send us an email, and we'll make sure that you get an answer. And with that, I would like to thank the panelists. It was fantastic today, and over to you, Ute.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for some excellent sharing and very excellent panelists. I think we've all enjoyed a lively discussion, and it's been fantastic to supplement those insights from different countries, from different sectors to the findings we've had from our reports. As Frank said, if you have any further questions, please send us an email, info@irena.org. I see my colleagues have been busy trying to answer questions online as well. So thank you as well then to the audience, because you've helped us bring some of these questions to our panel and enrich our insights. So thank you very much. We're going to wrap this up now. We have got another policy talk lined up at the end of June, where we'll move on to a totally different area, and that's design of renewable power auctions. So we hope to see many of you for that. Thank you very much, and goodbye from Abu Dhabi.